This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hello there. Welcome to episode 183 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, as always, Kinsey Roberts. Appreciate you joining in today. My guest today is Renee Sabo, founder and owner of Soirée and the host of the Confetti Hour Podcast. We are talking today about 5 steps to strategically position yourself in the wedding marketplace. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Renee. We made instant friends. She is so open about her knowledge. She's so knowledgeable and honest about her mistakes. Loved chatting with her. I want to tell you a little bit about her so you know where she's coming from before she dives into her 5 steps to strategically position yourself in the wedding marketplace. Renee's lifelong love affair with weddings started out as a high school dream that quickly evolved as she pursued a career in the industry throughout college and beyond. From rentals to planning to catering, her diverse experience has touched every corner of the industry and has led to her role as a multifaceted thought leader for event professionals everywhere. Inspired to start her own business, Renee received her MBA with a focus in entrepreneurship and quickly put her degree to work when she launched Soirée in 2017. Today, her award-winning company delivers elevated and romantic celebrations through full-service wedding planning and design for couples on the East Coast and destinations worldwide. Renee's success with Soirée has earned her and her company numerous accolades, including being named as the Best of Boston 2020, Best IRL Wedding Planner by Boston Magazine. She was also recognized as ILEA's Boston Top Planner in 2019 and has ranked in Wedding Wire's Couples Choice Awards for 3 consecutive years since opening her doors. When she's not busy bringing her clients' dreams to life, she's committed to providing quality education to the industry through her podcast, The Confetti Hour, where she shares insight and fosters candid conversations with experienced wedding creatives. Her devotion to the future of the industry extends to her role as President of ILEA Boston, as well as her passion for one-on-one mentoring with the next generation of planners. Renee resides in Boston with her husband Chris and their dachshund Lincoln. In her spare time, you can often find her sipping on bubbly and oysters with friends, exploring the charm of New England, or traveling to far-flung destinations, seeking out new cultures and design inspiration. I absolutely adore Renee. I know you will as well. She's so much fun. She's so kind. She really comes to education from a wholesome place and just wants to share with you everything that she's learned since joining the industry back in her college years. So enjoy this interview with Renee Sabo from Soirée and the host of the Confetti Hour podcast, as she tells us 5 steps that you can use to strategically position yourself in the wedding marketplace. Here we go, guys. Renee, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kinsey. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for saying yes to coming on the show. I knew after you and I got to get to know each other a little bit on your show, The Confetti Hour, I knew that we were going to be friends. I was like, oh, I just love that, Renee.
I did too.
So I'm so happy you said yes to coming on She Creates Business. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So as you know, I read your professional bio there at the top of the show, as I always do, but I love for my guests to just take a few minutes, give everybody the Cliff Notes version of who you are and what you're doing in the wedding industry. And then we are going to just blow their minds with this 5 steps to strategically position yourself in the wedding marketplace topic. I'm thrilled to be talking about this. It's a huge topic that I love. But before we get there, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Tell everybody, Renee, who you are. What do you have going on? What are you about?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, Kinsey, I've been a longtime fan of She Creates Business, so I really am so honored to be here. And you are one of the big inspirations that got me into my own podcasting. So I'll share a little bit about that in a minute. But to kind of sum it up, I'm pretty much my bread and butter is wedding planning. I've wanted to be a wedding planner. I was very lucky at a young age, right, that I wanted to be a wedding planner, and I met my wedding planner in high school. My mom got remarried and she let me shadow her. So I was lucky that kind of instilled in me some motivation, and I knew I liked event planning at an early age. So yeah, I'm a wedding planner in Boston, and I service all of East Coast and destinations, and I'm very full service. So I take on about 10 clients a year, and I absolutely love them. And then I've also kind of been in this unique situation where, because I knew what I wanted to do at a young age, I have been in various different facets of the event industry. And I kind of dabbled in hospitality, rentals, worked for other planners, and it's given me a lot of great insight. So I've always found, in associations or networking, people are always asking questions to me. And so I kind of actually leaned into that over the last few years and, joined the creative education space. And I am a speaker and an educator. And then I also have a podcast called The Confetti Hour, which you all have to go listen to Kinsey's episode. It was one of my favorites. And um, I get to interview inspiring creatives in the industry and hear all about their journey. I like to say, think a little bit of how I built this mixed in with some education component and then some confessions. It's a good time over there. So yeah, that's all. That's a little bit about me, but I just kind of live and breathe wedding planning.
And you said that you're really full service, so you do about 10 clients a year. So I'm imagining that you are in it with
Yeah.
those 10 clients a year.
I talk to them almost every day, every week for sure. There's not really a week that goes by where I wouldn't have at least some sort of touch point with them. But, it's been a journey over the years. I went from 25 clients a year to kind of honing down into this 8 to 10 threshold. And it's because I figured out that I can't help myself but be very involved in all the details. So, uh,
Mhm.
yeah. And of course, there's like needs in every different market. And so that's, yeah, kind of how I leaned into that full serviceness on my side of the planning.
I'm glad you said that because how tell me again, how long have you been in the industry?
Oh, absolutely. So this is my 10th year in the industry.
Mhm.
I feel lucky that I was kind of that budding generation where hospitality, it wasn't quite a thing where my parents felt like, oh, this sounds like a sound career.
Right.
But it was
You're right.
it was more of a thing enough. I mean, my mom hired a coordinator for her wedding, so she knew it was a industry. And so I feel like lucky. I was kind of on that cusp of, this generation of event professionals where I could start early on in the industry. And, now planners and like professionals all over, they have so much like access to education these days. Like, I don't know about you, Kinsey, but there was like nothing like this in college when I went to school, and I had to do PR and marketing and communications to just even get into special events itself. So
Mm.
so it's been a fun 10 years, but I feel like I'm not even halfway into my career. And before I started my company, I wanted to work in those different jobs because I wanted to make sure that this was it. This is my end all be all. And I went to a venue in between working for two luxury wedding planners, and I really hated it, honestly. I give you so much props to what you do, Kinsey, because it's a high demand, and they require as much customer service as my 10 clients do too. So I just realized I liked being a little more in the details. Like, I like knowing, what type of pocket square is going in on the groomsmen and how can I help them source that. So it was hard for me to go to a volume property because I didn't really get to be involved in a lot of those smaller decisions and get to know them.
Totally. I absolutely understand. And I'm like I was saying, I'm so happy that you said, you've been in the industry for 10 years. You started off, you've dabbled in a lot of parts of the industry and you figured out what you actually like and what you don't like. Volume is
Yeah.
not your thing. That very custom, full service, white glove experience is your thing. And I think that that is so important. And the reason this is on my brain right now, not only because of this topic today, but as we record this, I'm getting ready to talk about marketing to your ideal client with
Ah,
Taylor from Taylor Designs.
yes.
And she's also the owner of Source Code. She's been on this podcast before. But the reason this is on my mind is that I don't think I feel as if we do not give ourselves enough time to explore what we like and what we don't like. We think that the idea of finding our ideal target market or our, a quote ideal client, which I think is such a stupid, I'm sorry, I think it's a stupid concept. Um,
Me too.
we think that we could just make that up, and then all of a sudden that's what the way we should run our business, and we
Yeah.
don't give ourselves the time and the space to explore and discover and actually have experiences like you did that helps you actually define your actual target market.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you'll see when we dive into the topic, and I'm so excited to talk about this with you specifically, Kinsey, because I know when you were on my podcast, we kind of dabbled a little bit, but it's something that people just ignore completely. They don't really take the time to think about getting a lot of different nooks and crannies in the industry to find what's going to make them happy because let's be honest, this is a hard industry to work in and
It's hard.
it's a lifestyle. It really is. So I have to be okay with most of my clients need weekend or evening appointments. And if I had 25 clients, I mean, that it was, eating me alive, so to speak. So I
Yeah.
think there's so much that you only learn that by working for different areas of the industry. And I speak at local universities and I see a lot of hospitality students say, I want to be a wedding planner or I want to be an event planner. And I just kind of say, the best thing you can do for yourself is actually go work for a company that's not an event planner.
Come
like
on.
it's true. So
Yes.
because you also need to understand everything that goes into it and maybe you I would say go work for a event planner as well, but
Sure.
it's important because some people don't realize that this is hard. I mean, we're packing up at 1 a.m. and lifting, and there's a lot that goes into being on site that long. It's a 14-hour day, usually multiple days in a row, and there's also different facets in the wedding industry too. And so that's not like that for every planner that exists. So it's definitely something I'm passionate about talking about. Markets was a huge thing to me when I got into the industry. It wasn't something that came easy. I've had to learn what this is, but it's when I did finally open my business and figure out, okay, this is where I want to be. I want to be on this side of the industry. That was like a huge relief. I finally figured out what I want to do. I'm
Yes.
only, late 20s. I feel like everyone else, I grew up in Ohio, Kinsey. So everyone else in Ohio had figured out their lives way before me. But I just knew I wanted to be in events somehow. But it took a while to figure out where that was. And then the next step was figuring out where I stood in the wedding industry. Like where's my place?
Yes, 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 yes. And I know that we're gonna talk about working through it and all of that. And
Yeah.
that's just one thing. You and I both agree on this. It's something you cannot skip these steps. It's not like neither one of us, you guys, neither Renee nor myself, we cannot give you a roadmap to follow that will just be like, and this is how you get from point A to point B.
Right.
Pass go, collect $200. You're welcome. Move
Uh,
on to booking the best weddings ever and being, profitable, growing 25% year over year. You're welcome. Bye bye.
yeah.
You actually have to like get in the ring and move and work through everything. It's reminding me of a kind of a funny story that I heard on a podcast, but I'm not going to tell it because
Ah,
let's
it's
talk about that later.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was actually reminding me of an episode you did. Like I said, I'm a true listener. She creates business, and I think it was Emily Sullivan, and you guys were saying. I think everyone wants this like magic like course or something that you're gonna get to buy and then all of a sudden you're established and that's not really how this works. You just got to dive in and you just got to get roll up your sleeves and get dirty, get some experience.
Yes.
So I remember that stood out from an episode that you did recently because that's exactly what I feel like I'm trying to preach to people. But
Yes.
I'm like, I don't think I'm that old in the industry. I'm like, maybe they'll listen to me. I don't know, but I still think I'm old enough that they're like, this girl. I'm just kidding. I'm like, you need to get
She
on site and you need to be the one lifting those boxes at 1 a.m. And I
Yeah.
mean, I've worked in catering, dish rooms, banquet serving, bartending, and those were not glamorous jobs. But there are people that love it. And so I think that's what's interesting is you should go through all those different areas because you might surprise yourself. I found out I really didn't like working for a rental company. It was
Mhm.
so stressful. The phones never stop ringing. So, other professionals treat your rental associates really well. And same for venue. You guys go through so much, so many questions, and you have a huge liability the hosting the event. So I feel like I've just seen a lot working for different sides and I think we all just need to have a little grace and do the work to have experience, right?
I agree. You've got to get dirty. I'm gonna
Yeah,
make you a
I
t-shirt.
love that. I was like, should I
Make it
say
a
that word?
t-shirt
No.
the other day. Yeah, you should. You
I,
definitely
uh,
should. It's that kind of podcast, you guys, today.
I love it.
So tell me about, when it comes to strategically positioning ourselves in our marketplace, specifically in the wedding industry, talk to us really about how can we divvy up our market really into those well-defined segments
Mhm.
that will eventually, they inform and they drive our marketing approach. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I would say is your first step. Absolutely. Whether you're starting a business or say you work for a company and they're reanalyzing their position, or, you're reanalyzing your position as a business owner. There's so many, this can always apply, I feel like. So the first thing, really determining those market segments in your area, and it's going to look different for every area. So, I'll refer to New England where I am often, but know that you have to do the work to kind of figure out what that looks like in your area. So I think just gaining a better understanding of the market segments. It doesn't have to be perfect. Personally, I break up our markets here in New England, and there may be some planners that look at it a tiny bit differently, but for the most part, we're all very close. So we have kind of the budget market. I would say in this area, that's weddings less than 50,000, and then kind of the average market where we see a lot of $50,000 to $90,000 weddings here. And don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money. But it's very average here in Boston because it is expensive. I mean, most food and beverage minimums are going to be over half that budget. So that's why we
Hmm.
see a lot in that market. And so that's kind of what I classified as average. And then the luxury market, 80 to about 150,000 in this area, and then ultra luxury, anything, 150 up and up, 300, 400, half a million dollars. So, what does this look like in your area? What are some of the key characteristics of a client in each of those markets? So, budget is obviously kind of something I just touched on, but also style, what venues are they booking? What types of vendor teams are they hiring? Like really just figure out what that looks like in your region or the region that you're hoping to serve. For me, I started getting into destination weddings and I had to kind of redo all this, right? Because it's different for destination
Right.
work.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. And I just often find creatives jump into offering their service and their craft and without really understanding the industry and understanding the different market opportunities that exist. And there's no right or wrong market. It's just what makes you happy. So I'll give a good example. I hope it's a good example, I should say. But one of the event professionals that works for me, she's incredible, but she hates how full service I am and the level of design and detail that I go into. Loves working on site, helping me out, but she would never want a client like mine. And she does so well in the average market. And when I tried to serve the average market, I didn't feel as creative. I couldn't, they're more likely to want to utilize what's offered to them in house. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was gorgeous weddings. But, I found that I really enjoyed having a different chair for every wedding or a different linen. And, you know, I was realizing very quickly that those 25 clients weren't necessarily interested in that. So it wasn't really fueling me and why I got into being a wedding planner and a designer. But for my colleague, she would hate my job. So, and she thrives in the average market. There's actually a bigger need for people, I think, in that market. So, and that's, here in New England, again, it's going to look different, but we've done the work to analyze this and it's helped us sell. And I know the term ideal client, it's kind of one of those things that gives me a headache, but this is the actual framework that you need to figure out in order to establish who that ideal client is and what opportunities actually exist in your area. So,
Yes
yeah.
to all of that, because here's the thing about what you're saying, that and when I say that I don't like the term ideal client because I think it's a bit of a farce, especially in the wedding industry, and it is. And
Mhm.
everyone is just like, kids, I do
They're
not
like,
like what you're saying right now.
if we follow Serena and Lily, that's our ideal client. I'm like, no, that's
Yeah,
not where I
no,
mean, it could be one part of it,
no.
but it's not going to help you.
But does
Yeah.
anybody actually tell you that? No, they do not. No,
No.
they don't come to your plant. They don't come to my venue. They don't go to you, Renee, at your consultation and say, "I picked you because I also like to browse the aisles of Target on Sunday." No, ma'am. That's
Exactly.
not a thing. That does not happen. Everything you have just said though is speaking directly to me because it is all empirical data and you have to have those data points in order to analyze your market share. That's what we're missing in this ideal client. And I get frustrated with people
Mhm.
teaching about ideal client because we're all talking, what do they like? Where do they like to shop? Do they have a dog named Murphy that's a golden doodle? Nobody cares about that. That's not
So
actually going to help
specific.
you.
I've
I
seen those
know.
too.
You've
It's
seen
so
those.
specific. I'm
You've
like,
seen those.
I would
I know
work
you
with
have.
someone that loves a cat too. Like, this is crazy. This is
It's
not what it's about.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's not what it's about. You have to find these empirical data points, and there's a couple of things that I wanna shine a light on that you said so that we can
Mhm.
all get our minds around these and really you guys wrap your head around this and take this into your business and start doing this for your 2021 booking season and beyond because it is what will help increase your revenue. There's a few things that you said, Renee, that I feel are so smart and so brilliant. The first is that you need to understand what opportunities are actually available in your market. That is so important. I see so many people who are disappointed, who have sincere confusion in their business, who don't understand why they're not making any money, and it's because they're not qualified to try to book luxury or ultra luxury weddings and or
Mhm.
they don't have that opportunity in their market. So you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, which will ultimately lead to disappointment every
Yes.
single time. So understand, as Renee said, what opportunities are available in your market. The other thing that you said is that you need to understand what brings you joy, what brings you and listen, you guys, you know that I'm not a touchy-feely person. You're not gonna be happy every weekend of the freaking year. Like, let's get
Yeah,
real.
I'm not ever gonna sugarcoat this job.
No, it's
It's a job.
hard.
It's
Give me a
work.
break. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like we're working here. We're not, like let's gosh, I can't people who are just like, "Oh, you'll if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life." Like,
I'm like, "That's
punch
bull."
you right in the face.
Yeah. You're still gonna
Yes.
have to work and
You still have to work. So
yeah.
we're not telling you to what makes me happy all the time, what makes me feel like rainbow unicorn puppy kittens. It's actually what brings you the most professional and personal value. How do you feel like you're
Mm.
growing? How do you feel like your business is growing? What is bringing you that professional value? What is bringing you those professional what's the word I'm looking for, Renee? Like those I can't
Aspirations,
thank
maybe?
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
aspiration what's bringing you those sort of like rewards personally and professionally. For Renee,
Yes.
it's full service weddings. It's being in the details. It is actually knowing what pocket squares are going to go with what suits. And for me, it's none of those things. We are polar opposites, but we
Yeah.
still find joy and meaning in our work. And so we have to understand there it's a balance. And I that's kind of a tricky word, but it's definitely a mix of what opportunities are available in your market and you need to be super realistic about that. Stop trying to
Mhm.
sugarcoat it.
Yes.
And what do you actually want to do? What do you actually like? See, I thought we would have, when I first started my venue, I thought we would charge almost $10,000 per wedding. I thought that that's where we would get to. And
Mhm.
honestly, we were not going to get to that, I don't think, at least not for another 3 to 4 years. And to be honest with
Mm.
you, I don't think that that's our venue. I don't feel like we will ever be at a point where we get to that because that's not the market that we've inserted ourselves into. And I am definitely playing much more of a quantity game, but that's our market, you guys. Like, I don't live in New
Mhm.
England where we are spending $300,000 on weddings. I live in a town of less than 10,000 people, an hour and a half away from the closest big city. So that's the opportunity that's available in my market, and we crush it. And that's what's important. So anyway, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I just wanted to like
No,
hug you and pat you on the back for
oh,
everything you just
I
said.
wish we were in person. I
I do
cannot
too.
wait till we get to have that one day.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Yeah, but that I literally am gonna say preach emoji like 1,000 times, but it's exactly you pulled the exact points that I wanted to make with that is because I see so many people trying to fit that peg into a hole that doesn't fit. And it's hard because it just sets you up for continued failure. And it's if that is the market you want to serve, you just have to figure out where that demographic is. So
Yes.
I grew up in Ohio and I kind of w- dabbled. When I graduated from college. I went to Ohio State, and Columbus is a large enough city. I was able to enter the event industry. I was at a rental company, like I mentioned, and that was, traumatizing. And because it was so many volume and people
I
change
love
their orders.
how you
Yeah.
said that casually. That
I'm
was
like, yeah,
traumatizing.
that was traumatizing. I guess literally so much credit to people in every area. But anyway, so in Ohio, I just again I found myself wanting bigger events. I wanted more detailed events. And at the time, it was very hard to find that in Ohio. The people that were doing that, I mean, nowadays it's actually very different. I'm so happy. I have a lot of friends that are planners in that area, and they're like, "You can move back now," and I'm like, "No, I'm good here."
I'm good.
But
Thanks for asking.
yeah, but I mean, I had to look at that as a younger professional too, and that's why I moved to a city like Boston because if I wanted to be doing large scale events and, full tent production build outs, that wasn't happening where I went to college. And that's okay. And, it
That's
ended up
right.
being the best thing ever because I have kind of found my way and, and it personally worked out. I met a husband, met my husband. So we're here now. And I just wouldn't be afraid, I guess, to do that work because you just never know where it might take you. And finding joy and purpose and like that intention is actually not that hard if you just get honest and real with yourself. So if
Yes.
you want to be a destination wedding planner, then, do some work and figure out what that looks like. Talk to other planners, hire them as mentors and kind of just understand that just because you put in your Instagram bio that you travel doesn't mean you'll be a destination planner, you know? So
That's
those are
right.
just some examples that it does it like shouts out to me how many people are putting a lot of effort into their marketing and it's just kind of misplaced because there's really not a demand for it where they are. So,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. And I think too that it sometimes impacts actually the effort or the consistency in our marketing because we are disappointed because our efforts are misplaced. So it's really this vicious cycle, and until we can kind of land on number one, consistency is key, because again, that goes back to working through the issue. You can't just hop, skip, and jump over it. So
Mhm.
you're, especially, it doesn't really matter. I'm you've been in the business for 10 years. I've been in marketing for over 10 years, but in
Yeah.
the wedding industry for 4 to 5 years. Gosh, what year is it? Yeah, almost
I
5
know.
years, I guess.
Well,
And
2020, to be fair, has been like 7 years, so
exactly. I feel like I've lived 2 decades,
I know.
in this year.
Me too.
But the point is that I think both of us are still refining these things. This is a
Yeah.
conversation we have in our business, at least once a quarter. We just wanna make sure that we're doing the right thing and that we're attracting the right kinds of couples, that they're going to be happy here. We're looking for mutual joy. We're not looking to, like, trap people into a venue that they hate, you know what I mean? And I don't want you guys
Exactly.
to look to trap couples into a service that they don't need, that they hate, they don't like you don't get along, but they're paying you 10K per wedding. Who cares about that if it's going to be the worst thing that ever happened to you? That's why we
Absolutely.
have to think about mixing what you like, what you're good at, and also get that mutual joy, that mutual output, right? So let's talk.
Mhm.
I think you really hit so well, Renee, on those getting into well-defined segments that will drive your marketing approach. Now,
Mhm.
what are some questions though that we could ask ourselves? So everybody who listens to this show, almost everyone is in the industry already. Whether we're working for someone else, whether we own our own business, six one way, half dozen the other, really. But so we have current positions in our marketplace, whether we like it or not, whether we've been intentional with it or not. We have a current position in the market,
Yeah.
and I think you have some really great questions that we can ask ourselves, so that we can analyze what our current position is in the market. What are those questions?
Oh, absolutely. So, it's once you figure it out what those market segments are, you're going to be able to analyze it so much easier. And so some
Yeah.
of these questions that come to mind honestly come from doing a SWOT analysis, which many of you are, I would hope, very familiar with. It's the most simple thing you could do when you're setting up your strategy as a business. And I can actually give Kinsey a link to a free downloadable resource if they want to take some of these questions in SWOT analysis. But what's included in that are these questions. And so it helps you to do a market research and kind of use these keywords. But who is your current client? What is their age range? What is their budget and type of wedding? And then review your competition in hopeful markets. What market do you want to be in? What are your competitors doing? How do they market to those couples? What channels work for them? And clarify in that market what are the couple's age ranges, budget, and type of wedding. And then with the SWOT analysis, I like to identify kind of your strengths, the weaknesses, and then, of course, those opportunities and threats in the market that you're trying to move to, or say you're in your current market and you're just trying to strengthen it. But either way, it's really good to continue to do these analyzing practices. Kinsey mentioned every quarter. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. I try to look at it every quarter because, there are things in an industry like ours, trends, things shift. And so it's important to keep analyzing that. But some of these questions will help you kind of build a new positioning strategy and kind of be able to ask yourself what type of clients do you want and then figure out how to market to them. And I lean a lot into competition because I just want to see the industry be stronger, and it's not a bad thing to applaud other people's successes and see what works for them, right? So
That's right.
it's actually important that you kind of celebrate them. Don't copy, but at the end of the day, just kind of take note on what's working for them because it could help you get to where you want to be. And then ask yourself, like, how else could you stand out? Are there resources, additional services that fit the target client and market and their needs and wants? And what does that look like for you? So, all of it kind of goes into you creating that new strategy and then being able to further position yourself. And I'm sure you'll agree with this, Kenzie, but I always sit down and I have 110 ideas. And I think what's important for people is to realize that you're not going to get 110 things done when you put the strategy plan. So be realistic with how much you're going to do to move the needle this year to get you to your market. And just know that you can't jump, you know, in a month to a whole new market, or you can't excel, hundreds and thousands of dollars in 1 month. But if you plant the seed, it will continue to grow. And then this plan will allow you to just stick true to your goals and figure out how to continue to market to the segment you want to be in. Over it was kind of stand the test of time is really what I was trying to say.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think one important thing to say here when you are analyzing and evaluating your current place in your market, if you're happy with where you are and you just want a bigger share in that market section, I think that that's a very admirable goal and you can definitely do that. For those
Mhm.
of you though who want to move to a different market and perhaps you want to charge more, I want to caution you and say that just increasing your prices doesn't mean you're qualified to move to a more luxury market.
Yeah.
And just increasing your prices doesn't mean you're going to start attracting a bride that has a bigger budget. So it is only one piece of the pie. And so when you are doing this evaluation, you have to think beyond your price and you have to start thinking about your marketing plan and your marketing strategy because again, like Renee said, it's going to take you at least a full year to kind of especially if you're moving to a new market, it will
Mhm.
take you at least a full year, at least 6 months, and that's because of the sales cycle of the wedding industry, you guys. We only
Exactly.
have one engagement season, we only have one booking season, we only have one wedding season, and then it starts all over again, but then we're in another year. You see what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
yeah, because of the sales cycle of our industry, it will take you a full year to move out of what you want. So just saying, okay, well, I'm going to increase my prices, and then all of a sudden, luxury, I'm not going to say luxury. Couples with bigger budgets will find me. That is not correct.
Right.
That is part of it, but it's only one part of it. And I think that I would also ask you this: why are you doing that? Is it because you think the couples are going to be different
Mm.
in a market where they have a bigger budget, or are you just interested today in making more profit? Because if it's mostly about profit, and for a lot of you, it probably is. If it's more about profit, more about what you're bringing into your bank account, into your family, there's a lot of other ways to
Mhm.
change your profit structure before you just willy nilly increase your prices and think all of a sudden now you offer services to couples with bigger budgets. So if you need to talk about that, let me know. But anyway, okay,
Yeah,
I'm off of that.
absolutely. Oh, no, I mean, again, more preach emojis, but it's so true. I've been asked before. I'm the chapter president of the ILEA chapter here in Boston, and
That's so awesome.
yeah, it's
Go
awesome.
girl.
Also, a crazy year to be president. So there's a lot of these hard questions going on, and I think the first thing people thought of was, oh, I just want to raise my pricing because I want to be in a different market because I don't want, as much volume, and people definitely focus so much on pricing, and I kind of challenge them a little bit and say, well, what experience are you providing to raise your pricing, or what are you doing that's going to enhance the process for your clients that would put you into that market, and what do you have
Yes.
experience in that market? I'm not trying to be rude, but it's not just about the pricing. In fact, often I'm kind of reverse engineering. I look at like all the ways I want to serve my clients, and then I really have to do the hard work to figure out how many hours that is and what I should be charging and what my market charges and what's actually doable. So I feel like the positioning strategy too, what like kind of building a new one or continuing one and strengthening it, I also think like take into account your budgeting. You're not going to be able to hire a fancy marketing or PR firm. And I don't necessarily think you need to. I think there's so many tools out there. We're so lucky. There's so many free
Yes.
marketing tools these days. And just because you want to switch markets or whatever, I think the point is that you need to figure out w- the ideal clients. There's that word again. Sorry, Kinsey. the,
Okay.
the clients in that market, are they actually looking at Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Or where are you going to find them? I think that until you do the legwork that we're talking about, you're just throwing money. You're almost wasting money to me. I think you're throwing money at something that you hope is going to bring you a lead, but you have no idea and didn't do the research on if that's actually the demographic that you want to serve. So I'm very strategic about what magazines I put advertisements in. And I don't do Wedding Wire and the Knot because it's very rare that my clients would find me on that. And that's specific also, I think, to my demographic I found. So
It is.
yeah, because there's some people we use the Knot a lot at a venue. That a lot of brides do find venues on the Knot or Wedding Wire, but planners
Yes.
are a lot of vendor referrals. So my marketing budget, I spend a lot on partnerships and taking people out to lunch that I want to get to know in properties that are somewhere I'd want to work. And I think it just looks different for everyone. So that's why you have to figure out so much of the framework before you get to where you're going to spend your money too. And I know you've had Michelle Loretta on here a few times, and she helped me
Shout
kind
out,
of.
Michelle. Love you.
Michelle, yeah, you're incredible. I downloaded her Accounting 101, and I have a master's for my MBA and took accounting, and I still like blown away and like learning things from her 101 course. So
That's just the power of Michelle
yeah,
Loretta.
she's like
Like,
powerful. Yeah.
yes, girl.
But it's just, I think she said something in one of the episodes. I've heard her on a bunch of different podcasts, and then I got to have her on mine as well. And she said something like just about this reverse engineering in that business. Like a lot of people, ego spending. That's what it was.
Yes. Yeah, I was just like, "What's that
I know,
word?"
what was the word? Yeah, so she's like, people do a lot of ego spending, and believe me, I've been there. I spent so much money on things in the
Amen.
past, so I'm like, "Why, Renee?" At the end of it, why? Like, that brought me no business, and, really putting these topics and this plan and figuring out and doing the hard work to figure out where I stand in the market, it's allowed me to spend wiser and to be more profitable. So, shout out to Michelle because I love that she said that. Like, next time you want to make a big investment, ask yourself, is it an ego purchase? And does it actually help find the clients that you want to work with?
So good.
I
She's
know.
so good. That
She's
it
so
just
good.
feels yeah, she just puts it like she just says one word, and it
Yes.
really helps you wrap your mind around a whole concept. You're like, "Oh, okay. Sorry."
I know. While I was interviewing her, I think I took so long to reply back to her because I was just thinking, wow, that really hit me.
Yeah, I'm just adding everything up in my, like, calculator in my head.
It's
Just
the
kidding, you guys.
worst.
I was using an actual calculator because I suck at math. I
No.
was like, "I'm the worst."
And I mean, I feel like some ego purchases are fine every now and then, but I think what I liked about what she said is that everything has to be a strategy. I'm a big strategy girl. I don't know if that's because of being on association boards. They've helped me kind of think this way, but if you
Oh,
have
that's
goals.
interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, because
Yeah.
originally when, as an entrepreneur, this wasn't the focal point. I was like, I want to plan weddings and I want to do this and I want to be big, I had no real concrete goals that were trackable. And
I
it was
love
just
you.
so I
I want
know.
to be big.
I just want to be big. My
It's
husband's like,
all of us.
he's
It's
like, "Oh
everybody.
Lord." Yeah, it's all of
Same.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also like what does that mean to you? Like you being big
Yes,
is different than me being big, Like
it's true.
so I just was laughing because it's definitely a journey. Welcome to the party. It is you're gonna cry and you're gonna laugh and it's okay to not be where you want to be yet. I think though turning a blind eye and not being self-aware is the worst thing you could do. So I have no doubt that I'm going to change my strategy plan like every quarter or every year. But
Yes.
I think the fundamental goals of who I am and what I want to do kind of that's where your objectives go into your goals. And so, having a plan just kind of checks you, it keeps you straight, doesn't allow you to get shiny, object syndrome. So I think
Yes.
that's why I'm such a strategy girl now because managing a board of 13 people for an association, everyone has shiny object syndrome. So I had to really learn strategy in order to like check all of us. We just get so excited. And so do entrepreneurs and so do creatives in the event industry. But there are so many things every day coming at us. So many different ways to market ourselves. And it claims that it's going to bring us our ideal client in our market. And honestly, until you do the research and look and see if other people using that service actually are, getting ideal bookings from it, I don't think you should ever say yes to a spending until you know for sure, or at least have like some sort of research or hunch that it could be a positive risk. Because obviously, marketing, sometimes you never know. But
Yeah,
yeah.
sometimes you just have to test. You just wanna make sure, though, your
Yeah,
business is in a position to make that test. It's just like it's just like investing in the traditional market. It's
totally.
a risk, and you have to be able to float that risk. If it's going to crush you, if you have to be able to lose the money. That's it. Especially
Hmm.
when it comes to paid advertising opportunities, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, print ads, ads with regional publications, national publications. You have to be able to lose those dollars. If you can't, you don't have any business spending that money and you need to find another way because as Renee mentioned earlier, we are so lucky to live at a time where there are opportunities for free marketing, but you just have to have a strategy around it so you can see an ROI from that.
Absolutely. I built my entire business on Instagram for free. Like, I
Yes.
didn't do any paid advertising until I got into the podcasting world because it was harder to broaden my reach with an audience. But the perk of being in the wedding and event industry is people are very fascinated by us. They want to follow along, they like to hear your journey. And I think the most important thing is that you're just authentic and you're showcasing the work that you would want to continue booking. I also see I'm sure you've talked about this on the podcast before too, Lindsay, because you're a marketing guy also. But don't post photos of clients of weddings that you don't want to be doing. So
Totally.
a lot of people know I'm not a big like rustic girl. I will say people started twisting that, saying I'm not a nature girl. It's not that I don't like nature. I like refined nature. So I would love to work in your venue, Kinsey. It's gorgeous. And
Thank you.
it's but people are like, Renee doesn't do nature. So I'm like, no, that's not the marketing I want to put in out to the world.
Ooh,
Most of my
girl,
weddings are,
refined
yeah,
nature. I
refined.
love that.
It's just,
I
yeah,
love
you should
that.
use that in your
I
marketing for the,
literally wrote that down. I'm not kidding you. I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, I'm writing that down right now because I'm gonna explore
yeah,
that." My
refined
Renee, you're
nature.
my girl.
Oh gosh,
Like,
I like love you.
you just wrote my copy for me.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I
see
forget
you.
where I was going with that, but basically the nature thing is that I'm not going to be posting a lot of photos of rustic barns because
That's right.
I it
That's not your thing.
no, oh my gosh, if you put some of my team, they have videos of me like doing these weddings my first year in business and they're like, "Renee, I don't think you can actually, service this market," because it was hilarious. Like anytime a bug would fly near my ear, I'd have a full on breakdown. Like it's just I'm not your girl. I'm sorry. That's not me. I need something at least I need a property that sprays for mosquitoes, like just can't. So it's just funny. And then there's some planners that they are awesome with weddings like that. And they can go into
Yes.
a backyard and they can transform it. And most of my clients actually, I would say about 60% are tented weddings. So I do work outside, but I am likely a planner that you'll find working in properties that are meant for tents. They are refined, the property's ready for us to put a tent out. And that's because the clientele I serve also sees eye to eye with me on that. So
Yes. So this is so helpful because just hearing you explain what you have worked through since, from your first year in business to your 10th year in business now, what you've worked through that and I love to hear you just say it so confidently that that's not my thing. I'm not your girl.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not what I do. And my hope and desire for all of us is that we get to this level of confidence because again, it goes back to what you and I we're both saying. It goes back to that kind of concept of mutual joy, being mutually beneficial.
Mhm.
It's not your thing, which is amazing. You don't have to do that. You
I
don't have to
know.
take those weddings anymore, right? Like you
Yeah.
did though. You have video of it,
It's
and that's the finer point is that you did it. You had to do it because had you not done it, you would not know that that was not your strength. And I
absolutely.
think that's what we're missing a lot in positioning ourselves in the marketplace is we just tied this up in a bow, you guys. And you see that she did it. She doesn't do it anymore, but she has it on video that she did it. She had to go through it. Otherwise, she would not know this information.
Yeah.
So stop trying to skip steps. So as we wrap up here, Renee, I would love for you, and I know you mentioned this, you said you would love to see people do this quarterly so that they
Yes.
can evaluate their place in the market. But I'd love for you to give us some more solid tips about how we can kind of revisit, refine our brand position so that we're really always up to date and we're current, and how that fits into really this, do you have any tips on making that a little easier? Because our sales cycle is so
Mm.
structured really in our industry, no matter where you are. I know we all have different quote busy seasons, but essentially they're the same.
Yeah.
So talk to us about revisiting, refining our position in the marketplace and how we can do that from, quarter to quarter, year to year. What do you got for us?
Oh, absolutely. So staying consistent is something that you're going to hear across the board all over. My brand coach, I don't know how many times she could say it to me, but I really value it because if you keep revisiting your strategy, holding whatever that looks like, quarterly check-ins is what I do. I think Kinsey you said that's what you do. And but some people they might need to be checked once a month. Maybe that's something you need to revisit on the first of every Sunday or something that's going to hold you accountable to make sure that you are sticking to your strategy because the key with consistency is that you have to do it over a long period of time for you to really see,
Mm,
everything come to fruition. So, you know,
yeah.
what does that look like for you, right? Do you need to hire people? For me personally, I in my marketing side of things, I knew that I needed a copywriter because I used to really enjoy writing when I was a communications major. But now that I have my own business, we wear so many hats and I just need somebody to help me with that. And she helps me with everything that isn't social media. I really love social media. So I think like identify what's going to keep you on track and plan for that. Obviously sometimes hiring isn't in the cards. Maybe find an intern at a local university. I mean, you know, college students these days can blow all of us away with technology. So there are so many
Yeah.
things that you can do. I'd say creating like a marketing plan and a content scheduler that accounts for all of the goals that you put into your strategy. Just kind of always taking a look at how it relates back to the goals that you've created to help get you to where you want to be in the marketplace. And I always think that like brand positioning, I always think big companies, like Coca-Cola or like, other companies that do really great positioning in in their markets. And so I think when you're reanalyzing these things and you're having your quarterly check-in or your monthly check-in, kind of look at other never stop looking at inspiration is what I'm trying to say because it can evolve and sometimes you'll find that certain things aren't working and that's why you're analyzing this every so often because you don't want to continue efforts that aren't seemingly going towards the bigger goal, right? So, I think
Right.
the biggest thing is figure out how you're going to revisit your strategy and hold yourself accountable and if you do need help kind of executing that marketing, take that into account and figure that out quickly because there's a lot of options from free to minimal to very expensive options to help you keep on track. But, for me, I have a brand coach that I check in with every 6 months. And in addition to my quarterly check-ins with myself, and she kind of also asks me the tough questions that maybe I brush through, because when I did my quarterly check-in, I'm like, everything's on track, and, there's a lot of things that change, like I said, in the industry. So I think kind of position those check-ins, like you said, Kinsey, taking into account the cycle of bookings and all that, but also kind of keep an open eye on what's shifting too. Because, for instance, this year is such a good example of that. I had a lot of print advertising out, and no one's planning weddings, at least not in March, right? So I had March
Right.
6th committed to a pretty large print advertisement. And so I cried about that for a little bit. And I was so excited. It was a goal of mine to finally advertise in this publication that's very well known in Boston. And they unfortunately had to pause on um, publishing the magazine, and had to shift us into a different kind of magazine. So it was less focused on the area that I wanted to be in. And I know I'm being vague, but I have
Mm.
to be. So,
Yeah,
but
no, that's okay.
yeah, it was kind of like, oh, you know what? I put all my eggs into this basket. And that was kind of something that I wish I had analyzed a little bit more, because we didn't know a pandemic was going to happen, obviously, but maybe that was an ego purchase too, you know? So I think I just, stay true to the hard questions when you're analyzing, and then put in those systems and processes to help you get there. And yeah, I think keeping in mind the inspiration, and what's going to tug on the hearts and the minds of the people that you're trying to serve, and also kind of highlight what makes you unique and separates you from your competition. So it's a lot. It's a lot, I know. But I hope some of the tips help you stay consistent with that. Like, always just go back to that true reason why you're doing what you're doing. And I feel like you'll never run out of marketing content, because if you just speak from the heart, and then you also have these strategies and systems in place, like, it's just kind of a triple win is what I think. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's such a great place to end. This has been incredible, Renee. Thank you so much for your time and for coming on to teach all of us. Where can everybody find you online? Where can they get in touch with you?
absolutely. So you can find me on urbansoireeboston.com, and on Instagram at urban_soiree. And then you can also go to theconfettihour.com or the Confetti Hour Podcast on Facebook, or the Confetti Hour on Instagram, all the things. um,
All the things.
yeah, I would love to hear from some
I'll
of you, though. And thank you, Kinsey, for having me so much.
You bet. It's my genuine pleasure. And you guys, I will put all the things and all the links in the show notes. Really, definitely go subscribe, leave a review for the Confetti Hour. It's an incredible show. Renee does a wonderful job. You're going to love it.
Oh,
So put it on your list of podcasts to tune into. Renee,
thank
thank
you.
you again so much for being here. And and you guys, if Renee mentioned she has a link to a SWOT analysis or a free download that will help you work through that. So I will grab that from her. And I will make sure to put that in the show notes as well, so that you can start with that process in your own business if you haven't done it already, or maybe you just need to refresh and refine. So
Yep.
Renee, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Kinsey.
Tell me you did not love Renee. Isn't she wonderful? I was taking notes during that conversation. As I always do, I learn so much from the guests on this podcast. They bring so much joy to my life. I hope they do to your life. Renee was certainly no exception. And Renee, if you are listening, thank you so much for spending an hour with me and just letting me learn from you, kind of letting me be a fly on the wall. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you. Listen, friends, if you heard any links in the episode, they are in the show notes. You can find them in Apple Podcasts. You can also find them in your favorite podcast player, whichever one you are using. I know Renee offered a freebie during the episode. That link is indeed in the show notes. And finally, if you are someone who is interested in elevating your planning career and taking your wedding planning career to the next level, I would love for you to consider joining the Planners Vault when it opens mid-February 2021. It is run by someone who has my deepest respect and admiration. Her name is Megan Gilligan. She is a longtime wedding planner. She has owned her own business for over a decade. She's been in the industry for 17 years, and her membership Yep, the Planner's Vault is opening again in February. No commitment necessary right now, my friend, but if you are interested in learning more, why don't you just hop on the wait list, see what it's all about, and you can do that over at theplannersvault.com/SheCreatesBusiness. That link is also in the show notes. You will not regret it. You'll be able to join our live Facebook group, which is full of supportive women. I got to tell you, when I launched Open Heart Papery in the last episode 182, I'm not even a wedding planner, but I'm in there as a marketer, and that Facebook group lit up with congratulations and people sharing on my behalf. It was incredible. So that's just one of the benefits. Come find us at theplannersvault.com/SheCreatesBusiness. Hop on the wait list just to see what it's all about, and we'll maybe see you in mid-February 2021. All right. Take care. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.